Welcome to chapter 22 of the book of Ezekiel, Sins of Jerusalem. It only mentions the word Jerusalem once, but it talks about the city. And as we go through, it's obvious that a lot of this has to do with Jerusalem. And it begins with the familiar, and ageneto logos Kyriou pros me legon. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, and you, son of Anthropu, man, shall you judge the city of blood? Now, what is the city of blood? Well, I think it's Jerusalem, of course, because he says, yes, hold her forth as for an example for all her lawless deeds. In Revelations 18:29 to 36, it talks about the city, and it says, and in her, the great city, the blood of prophets and holy ones were found, and of all the ones being slain upon the earth. So the great city, and of course it was talking about Jerusalem. It calls it the harlot city Babylon, but it's not Rome, and it's not Cincinnati, it's not any place except Jerusalem. It's all about Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. And Jesus says, Herod says, I am innocent of the blood of this just one. You shall see. And responding, all the people said, his blood is upon us and upon our children. That's in Matthew 26:27. So the idea that the blood of God is even poured out, the blood of Jesus Christ. Then we go into this interesting part between Matthew 23:31-39, where Jesus explains it, so that you witness against yourself that you are sons of the ones murdering the prophets, and you fill up the measure of your fathers. Almost sounds like it came out of Ezekiel. Serpents, offspring of vipers, how should you flee from the judgment of Gehenna, the valley of Hinnom, outside of southern walls of Jerusalem, where they burned their children in fire to Molech. On account of this, behold, and that's the judgment of Gehenna, is going to be, Israel was judged harshly because of their putting their children into the fire of the god Molech at the shrine of Tophet in the valley of Gehenna. On account of this, behold, I send to you prophets, and Jesus is saying, I send to you prophets, and wise ones and scribes, and from out of them you shall kill and crucify, and from out of them you will whip in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city, so that should come upon you all just blood, having been poured out upon the earth from the blood of Abel, the just one, unto the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. It has to do with Jerusalem there. Amen, I say to you that all these things shall come upon this generation, which I believe is the generation of the unbelieving Jews. And he continues, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. Now he gets particular and tells us that it is Jerusalem, the one killing the prophets and stoning the ones sent to her. How often I wanted to assemble your children, in which manner a hen assembles her nestlings under her wings, and you wanted not. Behold, your house is left to you desolate. For I say to you, in no way shall you behold me from now on until whenever you should say, being blessed is the one coming in the name of the Lord. That hasn't happened yet. Israel is still in rebellion. The harlot city, Jerusalem, is now being re-inhabited by the Jews until the destruction by the beast that's mentioned in the book of Revelation. So this all has to do with Jerusalem. In verse 3, and you shall say, thus says the Lord, Kyrios, that is L-O-R-D, is the Lord, Adonai, Kyrios, the leader, the Lord, Jehovah O city shedding blood in the midst of herself. That's Jerusalem, so that her time should come, which time that is, the time of the destruction, or the time of Jesus, and time afterwards with the Romans, or the time of the beast, or all. And prepares thoughts against herself to defile herself. And there's no time given here, so could be any of these. In your blood which you shed, you have fallen, and in your ideas which you made or produced, 4160, you defiled yourself, and your days drew near and brought on the time of your years. On account of this I have given you for scorning to the nations, and for mocking to all the regions, the ones near to you and the ones far at a distance from you. And they shall mock you, or mock against you, O one famously unclean. That's a horrible condemnation of Jerusalem, the city famously unclean. Is it still famously unclean today? Well, you'll have to go there and check it out. I haven't been there. And great in lawless deeds. Again, and then he lists all these things. Behold, the ones guiding, the aphigumeni, hegemon comes from that, the guiding the house of Israel. Each blends together with his relatives against you, all the people together against you, so as to shed blood. They spoke evil of father and mother among you, and against the foreigner they behaved with injustice among you. The proselytone, the proselyte, comes from that word patera, pater, father, and mitera, mother, meter, mother, maternal. Orphan and widow, orphanon, a transliteration, and tyrannized among you. So they're against their parents, and Jesus came against them because they were not taking care of their parents, and saying that the money that should have went to the parents, they had it dedicated to the temple so they could use it as they wanted. And so Jesus came against that, against the orphans and the widows. Apparently they were continuing that bad behavior at the time of Jesus. And my holy things they treat with contempt, and probably the things of the temple where they were selling and making selling things in it, making commerce out of the temple. And my Sabbaths they profaned among you. And how many people were obeying the Sabbaths at the time of Jesus? I don't know. How many are people in Jerusalem are following the Sabbath today? I don't know, but it'd be interesting to know. The men were robbers among you. It says in John 10:8, Jesus says, all as many as came are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. Fortunately, robbers are there. They're still around, but we don't follow them. So that they shed blood among you. And they were eating upon the mountains to idols. I added, that's what basically is talking about, the high places among you. And they committed unholiness in your midst. They were doing things that were not holy. Perversions. They uncovered the shame of the father among you, and that's sort of like what it says in Genesis 9:24 with Noah after the flood. It says, and the two sons, their face was backwards, and they looked not at the nakedness of their father. And Noah sobered up from the wine and knew as much as his younger son did to him. So they uncovered the shame of the father, sexual perversion, and they abased the woman sitting apart in her uncleanlinesses. That would be in her menstrual period, which was forbidden for them to have sex with a woman when she was on the menstrual cycle. Each with the wife of his neighbor acted lawlessly. So apparently adultery was rampant, and each defiled his daughter-in-law in impiety and more sexual perversion with the father and the father with his son's wife. And each, we'll go here, his sister, the daughter, and then we'll jump up here. Remember, his sister, the daughter, abased the sister, the daughter of his father among you, incest. They took bribes among you so that they should shed blood. They took a bribe so that they would kill somebody, that if you had enough money, you could have somebody put to death. Interest and usury they received among you, and that was in the temple when they were using usury to transfer the Jewish drachma for the temple coins. They couldn't use the common coinage in the temple because it was unclean. So they go in there, and the money sellers would it would give them $1 token for their sacrifice, but the dollar token would cost them $1.50, the money that was outside of the temple. So they made 50 cents on every dollar, more or less. And you completed the consummation of your evil by tyranny, ruling over the people. And you forgot me, says Adonai Kyrios, the tyranny of having power to be able to make people do what you want them to do, and evil. And if I should strike my hand against my hand, that's clap, against the evils which you have exhausted in the things which you did, and against the blood shed by you against the ones being in your midst, your heart shall stand. You have a heart attack if I told you all these things, if you realized them, basically. Shall your hands hold in the days in which I do unto you? Basically, are you going to be able to handle what I do as a result of this actions of you? I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will act. Peace. So, again, 4160, or do, I will act, or do. And I will disperse you among the nations, ethnicity, and I will scatter you among the regions, and your uncleanness shall vanish from out of you. Now, they were taken to Babylon, but there were some left. And then they were later taken by the Romans, scattered 2,000 years. They've come back now. With the beast, I believe they'll be scattered again. But then when they come back, it says, and I will allot among you before the eyes of the nations, and you shall know that I am the Lord. You vanish, your uncleanness shall vanish from out of you in this future time far off. And the word of the Lord came to me. Now again, it changes here with that logos, Kyriou pros me legon, O son of Anthropu. Behold, the house of Israel has become an intermingling of all brass, Halko, the Chalcolithic era, the brass age, bronze age, and iron, and tin, and lead. They are in the midst of a furnace of silver being intermingled. All these other elements that were put in there that weren't as pure as the pure silver. It was intermingled, diluted. On account of this, and so were the people of Israel. They were diluted with sin and people from other nations. And when I look at the United States today, it originally was a Christian nation, more or less, and now today it's an intermingling of people from the Buddhist countries, the Hindu countries, the Sikh countries, the Baha'i areas, the Muslim areas, the atheistic countries of Soviet Union that people came, all these interminglings in the United States, and it has intermingled, and the melting pot is melting rather than what's in it. On account of this, say, thus says Adonai Kyrios, because you became all for one admixture, all these things. On account of this, I will take you in the midst of Jerusalem. So he's going to do this in Jerusalem. Now when? Don't know. As silver is taken, and brass and iron and tin and lead in the midst of the furnace, to blow fire into it for the casting in a furnace, so I will take you in my anger and in my rage, and I will gather and cast you in a furnace. I should have looked in the entities of the book of Revelation to see if there's anything about a furnace in the future. But you can look it up if you have that book and see if it's going to be a future event where all these different peoples will be in Jerusalem. And I will blow upon you in the fire of my anger, and you shall be cast in a furnace in the midst of it. And then the idea here is the purification of fire. The fire burns off the dross, all these other things, and it leaves the silver. Now, I don't know how it does it, but it does it. In which manner silver is cast in a furnace in the midst of the furnace, so shall you be cast in a furnace in the midst of it. And you shall realize that I, the Lord, poured out my rage upon you. So whoever is going to be at that time of this rage of God, I don't believe it's going to be the Christians that are true Christians or following Christ. I don't believe they will have the rage poured out upon them. Now, I'll show you why here as we go down. The word of the Lord came to me, and now it changes again, saying, O son of Anthropu, say to her, and to her I believe is the land, you are a land, and ge, and feminine, not having rain, nor rain came upon you in the day of anger, a drought, nothing to put out the fire, of whom the ones guiding in her midst, the aphigumeni, the hegemons in her midst, are as roaring lions seizing prey by force. So the rulers are going to be ones that are going to be doing these evil things, could be the future time of the beast. Devouring souls by domination. You can add that word to your English derivatives book. Dynastia, dynasty, domination. And taking honor. And your widows are multiplied in your midst. So people are going to be killed, basically. Men, and there will be widows, more widows, bloodshed in this city. And her priests annulled my law. So the priesthood annulled the law of God. And you see, Israel today, there's no temple, no priesthood. So the law is basically annulled. And profaned my holy things. And the Holy Mount is ruled by the Muslims. And so they're profaning the holy area. Between holy and profane they distinguish not. And between unclean and clean they distinguished not. So right now, there is no distinction between the two. It's all unclean. And from my Sabbaths they covered up their eyes, and I was profaned in their midst. How many people today obey the Sabbath in Israel? Interesting to know. Her rulers in her midst are as wolves seizing prey. Now that's arpazontes, arpagmata, and that has to do with the raptor bird. Raptor bird was an owl or an osprey, an eagle, a hawk. They come down, they have the talons, big long talons, and grab their prey, and whammo, all of a sudden the prey is going through the air, all four legs are moving around, and the bird is flapping and taking the prey up to the nest to feed the young. So I saw a picture of an alligator being grabbed by an eagle and taken up to be devoured. And so this is the idea of this prey of the rulers seizing these people and destroying lives so that their desire for wealth should overabound. So it's all about making money, a desire for wealth. And you would wondering, well, what kind of desire for wealth should overabound? When you start calling your last name silver, gold, pearl, all these names of things that are for wealth, you kind of wonder about the people that would put those names upon themselves. And so this desire for wealth should superabound. Does it still superabound? I believe it does. The wealth of the Jewish people in the world is amazing. I was just reading about the Rothschilds, and they started back in, I believe, the 1700s, and They have mansions and money. It's just unbelievable. Israel, how does this little bitty small country, postage stamp sized country, how does it get all this wealth to do all the things that it has done? The military, the atomic bombs, the rocketry, everything that it has. How does it all come to this little postage stamp country? The wealth that's coming into it is just, it's amazing. And her prophets, anointing them, shall fall, seeing vanities. So whatever prophets they are, they're going to be using, it says, lying oracles, saying, thus says Adonai Kyrios, but the Lord spoke not. And the people of the land are pressuring iniquity and tearing in pieces the prey. So again, the people, it's not only the rulers, but the people of the land are pressuring iniquity. It's like the United States. I mean, there's a tremendous break between the people that want to do the right thing and what I consider the right thing, or the things closest to the Christian morality, and the people that want to do evil. And the ones wanting to do the evil thing are pressuring iniquity. They want a lawlessness to take over and destroy this country and other countries, I'm sure, and tearing in pieces the prey. A lot of times the prey could be somebody that has more than they do. A person that's lazy, doesn't want to work, will want to find somebody that's weak to take their money away from them, which I see happening today. Tyrannizing the poor and the needy, making money off of the poor and the needy, and not behaving with equity to the foreigner. And people that are foreigners, well, now, in the United States today, a person could argue, well, the equity in behaving to the foreigner is not fair because of the things that are going on, laws that are against them. But the foreigner, to me, is somebody that's allowed to come in, not somebody that's illegally coming in. There's a big difference there. If they allow them to come in, a person should be given the same treatment as the people that are living there, more or less, unless they're, we have citizenship now. I don't think they had citizenship back then except for the Romans, and that was only for a certain class of people. And I sought from out of them a man behaving rightly, and standing before my face soundly in the time of the anger, so as to not wipe her away unto the end, but I did not find. Well, we know that when God came down to wipe out Sodom and Gomorrah, he came to Abraham, and Abraham said, are you going to wipe it out if there's 50 men, righteous men? No. How about 40? No. 30, 20? No. 1? No. So what did God do? God went and took Lot out and then wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah. So here, if he found one person that was, his anger, I don't believe, would have been poured out on Israel. It will be in the future. It wouldn't be poured out, but there won't be any, not one. And if there was any one in there, I believe then that person is going to be taken out, just as Lot was taken out of Sodom and Gomorrah. The believers in God, Christians, and those will be what's called the rapture, taken out, harpazo, snatched away. But I poured out upon her my rage by my fire and anger to complete it. So God's rage, fire and anger is going to be completed against the ungodly, and I don't believe the Christians will suffer the wrath of God. And I have imputed their ways unto their heads, and they are liable for their actions, says Adonai Kyrios. Chapter 23, the two harlot sisters, and to find out who these two harlot sisters are, you'll need to come and join us in the next video seminar in chapter 23. I hope you do, and God bless.